All right, in this video, we are going to talk about ObjectInputStream and ObjectOutputStream. So again, these are two child classes or descendants of FileInputStream and FileOutputStream. So these are byte streams. Remember, byte streams are streams that are used to read from and write to binary files. Okay, so with ObjectInputStream and ObjectOutputStream, like the name implies, we are going to use these classes to read and write object data to binary files. Okay, in order to use ObjectInputStream and ObjectOutputStream to read and write object data, right, what you'll need to do is to have your class implement the serializable interface. So let's pull that up. All right, so serializable is an interface. Okay, and if you go and look, right, there's not much in here, right? So usually, right, when you have an interface, what you are expecting, right, is there to be some abstract methods in there, right? And there's none in here, right? Nothing. So this is an example of what some people will call a marker interface. So you're just when you implement this interface, right, there's really nothing to do. You're just marking that class, right, as something that Java can read, an object, right, which Java can read and write to the disk. Okay. All right, so serializable, there's really not a whole lot to do, right? In this example that we're going to look at, right, here in a minute, we have this student class, okay? So everything in this student class is pretty much, what you would expect. It's just a very basic student class with fields for name, student ID, and a GPA, a constructor that sets the value of all the fields, and it has a toString. Right, it doesn't even have get and set methods, and that's fine. That's all we really need for this example, right? But you could have, whatever you want in there. All right, and so now what we want to do is to be able to read and write this student data to disk, right, using these objects. So what we will do, right, is import java.io.serializable. Okay, and then this class, our class, will implement the serializable interface. Okay, so we would just put that up there in the class header. Okay, and so that allows us to be able to use ObjectInputStream and ObjectOutputStream to write this object data to disk. All right, so first we're going to start with ObjectOutputStream. Actually, let me go back here. I hadn't really talked about the methods yet. So the methods are readObject, right, for ObjectInputStream, and for ObjectOutputStream, it's writeObject. Okay. All right. So looking at ObjectOutputStream first, right, here you can see I create an array of student objects. All right. So Alice, Bob, and Cal. Okay. So here I'm just getting my data set up. And after that, I have a try with resources statement, and you're going to see that works exactly the same way as it does in the other examples we've encountered, right? With buffered output stream, data output stream. We are first going to create a file output stream object inside a try with resources statement, right? And then we are going to wrap an object output stream around that file output stream. So in other words, we're going to create an object output stream object, and in the call to the constructor, we are going to put that file output stream as an argument. So that's exactly the same thing that we did. All right, and then so that means our stream is created. Next up is write, right? In this case, since we're talking about an output stream, and it's very easy. We just take our object output stream object, and we call the write object method. All right, so here I have the array of student student objects set up. So here I'm just writing the first student object, the second student object, and the third student object. And I'm going to be writing those to a disk. And when this program is over, it will generate this student objects.bin file. So I'm going to refresh, show you that there's nothing here, right? And then I'm going to compile this and run it. And it should generate this student objects.bin file. So that's a binary file containing these student objects as data. All right, so if I double click on it in JGrasp, I can open up in an 8-bit binary mode and take a look at the junk inside, right? And you can see that you can see some of the things in there. Cal, right, is there, GPA name, so you can see some things in there. Alice, Bob, right, and so on and so forth. All right, but on disk, right, it's really just nothing but a bunch of bytes, a bunch of zeros and ones, right? Okay, next up is, now say we have another part of the program, and that is going to, that the other part of the program is going to read that file. So we're going to access that data that's on the file, and so what we would do is create a file input stream object, right, with that file in here in the constructor for the file input stream, wrap an object input stream object around that file input stream, again in the usual way that we've been doing that. And then here I knew how many there were in there, so I just created a little loop and decided to read those in. So now let's take a look at the documentation for object input stream. All right, and we want to take a look at the read object method. Okay. So if you look at this read object method, right, it returns object as the return type. Okay. So in that case, what we want, right, is for it to be a student, okay, type here. And so one way you can do that is to do a manual typecast. So this method, right, read object, is going to return something of the object type, right? But we want it to be the student type, okay? Because that's what it is. So what we're going to have to do is manually cast this to a student. And the way you manually typecast something, right, is right before it, you would put in parentheses the type that you want to have, okay? So when we run this, you can see it's going to read that file from the disk, and then it's going to create a student object, and then we can print that student object out. So let's take a look at what it would look like without this little bit in here. All right, so you see, if without that manual typecast in there, you're going to get incompatible types. Object cannot be converted to student, okay? So the thing is when Java sees this, it knows that the return type of the read object method is object. And remember, if you don't remember what the object class is, that's the mother of all classes, right? Every class, right, that in Java can trace its ancestry right back to the object class. And so Java gets confused about how to convert that. And so all you've got to do, right, is again to do a manual typecast. So in parentheses in front of this, you would put the type that you want to convert to. So we're saying, hey, we want to explicitly force this conversion to the student object. And then Java's okay with it. And you can see it does it just fine. Okay. All right, and that's it. We don't have to worry about closing the streams or anything else because we're using the try with resources. All right. So that's pretty much it for the object input stream and object output stream classes.